Mirror, mirror on the wall, what's the most recently logged movie of them all? It's Snow White.
Snow White. Oh my god. Hello.
Hi.
I'm Robbie.
And I'm Micah?
Well, I just figured you'd cut right to the chase, introduce you.
Oh yeah, but you're like, I'm Robbie.
I'm Robbie.
And this week we're talking about a very serious movie.
I'm turning into the narrator from Reservoir Dogs.
He's on the radio. He's not the narrator.
He's not technically like the narrator, but he's like the narrator of the movie, I would argue.
I think you're wrong.
He's like the spiritual narrator. But it doesn't matter.
Sure.
It doesn't... But I'm Robbie, he's Micah, and together we host a podcast called Recently Logged, and you're listening to it right now.
It's in your ears right now.
And
Probably.
We're discussing a film this week, which we have revealed in the intro, which is a little out of character for us.
Out of character. It's just slightly unconventional.
But yeah, this week we're talking about Snow White.
Which, animation history.
Very, very old movie.
Very, very old movie.
Well, not like very, very old. I just meant very, and then I like.
I mean, you don't really get too many like full-on movies that much earlier than like the 20s.
That's true. Features are tough to come by in like the 1910s for sure. So yeah.
So I would say this qualifies
Relatively
as very old.
Yeah.
Relative. This is like a decade out from like the birth of movies.
Well, I know. I'm like, it's obviously like an old movie relative to movies, but like relative to like general history, it's not that old, you know. Like this was the 30s.
The 30s.
But yeah, we're talking about
new.
Snow White. Anything you want to add to the intro?
Oh no, we're good. Let's talk about what they need to know about Snow White, since you guys know nothing about Snow White, I'm sure. Alright, so Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is the full title.
Oh, right.
It is released in 1937. It is rated approved.
Got that approval rating from the board.
It's an hour and 23 minutes.
Pretty impressive.
Its little IMDb description is, exiled into the dangerous forest by her wicked stepmother, a princess is rescued by 7 dwarf miners who make her part of their household.
Alexa, play Exile by Boney Bear. Quite good.
Its cast features Adriana.
Oh gosh,
Caselotti? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Harry
Looks Italian.
Stockwell.
Interesting. I did not even like register in my brain to check the cast for this.
Roy Atwell,
which seems silly because like,
and others.
They're like the first like major voice acting roles in movie history, and I didn't even bother checking.
Directed by William Cottrell.
Yes.
David Hand and others, according to the
and others question mark.
The first people credited as writing it are the Grimm brothers.
Well, I mean, yeah. Obviously, for those who don't know, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is an adaptation of an old Grimm brothers fairy tale.
Though we have several story writers: Ted Sears, Richard Cretan, Otto Englander, Dick Richard, Earl Hurd.
Yeah, I guess.
Earl Damaris,
like
Dorothy Ann Blank, and Webb Smith.
An animated movie this old, they wouldn't have like a precedent for how to like organize the upper management for an animated film like this, because nothing had really happened.
It was nominated
to this scale.
It was nominated for 1 Oscar.
Very nice.
For best music score.
Good.
And got an honorary Oscar for being the first feature-length 2D animated film.
Absolutely.
Which is a very important like part of its history. Is
the landmark, man.
The first feature-length like 2D American film.
Yeah, crazy.
Pretty crazy. Also, apparently one of the first films ever to have merchandise made for its release.
Thank you, Walt Disney Corporation. You've done it. You've started the best trend.
It's pretty funny. But yeah, let's get into what we think of this mysterious picture.
Let's do it.
right, so Robbie, what do you think of this cultural touchdown, this landmark of cinema?
I was about to say, I feel like Landmark is better.
This monumentous occasion of hand-drawn cinema.
Who'd have thunk it? I think it's a fun movie. I think a pretty great movie.
It's a, quote, fun movie.
I think this era of animation, like I'm a big fan of like 30s and 40s 2D animation. It's very expressive and usually very funny. And I don't know, it's like this weird like heightened vaudeville that was really popular back then, and I think this movie really excels at using that to its advantage. That's like half of my enjoyment of this movie.
All the physicality is very flowy and like goofy and fun.
It's crazy. But like I don't know, it's a very simple movie. I mean, obviously it's a Grimm's like adaptation. They usually write fairly simple in plot anyway stories. Well, I say that. There's obviously exceptions to that. But like, I don't know. I really dig the atmosphere of this. I like the character designs a lot. There's some great like vocal reads. I'm surprised with how like young voice acting was, like that all of the characters feel so well defined and great, which I mean, part of that's the animation too.
Well, I mean that, and like a lot of, you know, voice acting wasn't thought of like voice acting was before that. Like the voice acting was very over the top, even in like animated stuff. It was very much feeling like stage acting. Which
exactly,
is, you know, it's a good thing. You know, a lot of enunciation, a lot of big whoa.
And I mean, part of that also comes with like the lower audio fidelity of like older movies, which is why they often talk very like loudly and with nice round tones.
Round
tones. Exactly. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the vibes of this one, and that's really mostly what it is, because it's not like a like story movie all that much. Really, it's a collection of like just fun animated sequences with great music too. I really like the music in this.
Funny when the story is resolved with a couple of turns of a page.
That is quite funny. But yeah, I think it's pretty
like great. Disney's Robin Hood levels of just running out of budget to finish your movie.
Oh man, poor Robin Hood.
And well, Prince John was I love the way that movie just like, and then this happened, and they all lived happily ever after.
Right.
The conflict is settled completely off screen.
I love Robin Hood, man. Great movie. But yeah, I ended up giving Snow White a 4 out of 5.
Nice.
In stars, my star rating. What about you, Micah? What do you think of Snow White?
What do I think of Snow White? I think it's obviously a very, very, very cool movie. Like in terms of what it's done, in terms of where it was culturally. A lot of its filmmaking and animation for the time period is insane.
I mean, not like for the time period, even against like today's animation.
No.
It's got a real class to it.
I mean, there's some shots in this that are just straight impressive and good looking. Like, it's just a good looking movie. I love the background paintings and everything.
Oh my goodness. Looks great.
An art unfortunately lost in modern animation.
Yeah, man, bring back the matte paintings. In general, really.
And I think where this movie kind of loses, because I like the vibes of this too. Mm-hmm. I like the characters, I like the idea, but I do think the story kind of loses me, and I get a little bored because the story is just so clunkily paced.
It is.
It's not even the fact that like there's not much story. It's honestly the fact just like the way that it's paced. Because something like Robin Hood, I don't even have a problem with the fact that its story cuts, or that there's not really a whole lot of plot in Robin Hood.
Yeah, Robin Hood is even more of just like a vibes movie than this is.
Which is fine. That's very acceptable, especially in an animated movie that looks this good and is this like fun and consistently funny. But at the same time, I'm just not that engaged. But it's very cool.
That's a shame, man.
I gave it a 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. I can't see the 3 out of 5. It kills me. It eats me up inside.
Of course, we're sitting here considering ratings for this, and Robbie's like, I'm thinking, a 5 out of 5.
No, I said a 4 or a 5.
Which is crazy for this movie, because I do not think this is a perfect movie.
I don't know, man. Like, what more could I really ask for? Like,
a better story.
Well, I don't know. I kind of like how it plays out. Like, I'm not a big fan of, like, the romance like thing, which is the main like motivating force. That's not even like
I was about to say that's not even my gripe with the movie. I mean, I think
that's like the only thing that I don't really.
It's a little sloppily introduced that her like big wish is for a prince to come and take her away, but like Eh.
I mean, that's like what she wants.
I was about to say, she's a
Yeah.
princess, and she's being kept as a scullery maid, even though she's a princess. So, of course, she wants a prince to come sweep her away.
Well, I mean, her whole opening song is that she's waiting for someone, and then like he comes, and then she
yeah,
like
I don't know.
immediately
Out of
leaves.
almost any Disney movie, honestly, this is one that I don't have that big of a problem with the fact that the prince is nobody.
Yeah.
And that, like,
'Cause
her
it doesn't really
motivations
matter.
for romance are weak, because that's not really what the story is about.
Yeah.
I think like a lot of it that I don't know. I feel like the Queen stuff is really poorly worked into the
Really?
movie. Yeah,
I guess I could see that. The Queen, I don't know. The Queen is like one of my favorite characters in this.
No,
'cause
I love
she's
the
just
Queen.
like such a joy to watch anytime she's on screen for this movie. I'm
I
like, these
love
are like
the
the best.
Queen.
These are like the best scenes in the movie.
she's so petty and stupid and
Right.
like really bad at being so evil, but yet really good at it too. It's so funny.
Yeah, she's got like a real technical knowledge of all things evil, and then just sucks at execution.
Right? Like, dude, the way she conks out like is so goofy. And again, as much as people point this out, it's so funny. She's like, "Oh, I must get revenge on Snow White. Allow me to make an ugly potion." Which again, Snow White being more beautiful than
Right,
her
that's-
is the whole kickoff
that's
of
the
the
whole
plot.
thing.
And then she's like, "Let me drink this ugly
The ugly
potion
potion.
myself,"
So that she
could
won't
have-
recognize
She
me.
could have just Howl's Moving Castled her.
Right? Dude, Howl's Moving Castle is a direct response to Snow White. Confirmed.
And then yeah, she's just a goofy character, but I think
Yeah.
actually like I don't know, the pacing of sequences just bothers me. It doesn't
Really?
keep me engaged.
That's actually something I wanted to praise watching it this time, because I hadn't seen it in like 6 years or
Dude,
whatever.
no, it's been like 10 years since we've watched this.
I remember rewatching it with like, I don't know, some kid we were like hanging out with a little while ago.
I don't recall that. That might have just been a you thing.
Yeah, that's what I think it was. So it hasn't been quite that long. It hasn't been like a decade since I've seen it, but it had been a while. And I was really pleasantly surprised at how engaging it was, like consistently.
Well, I find scene to scene pretty engaging. Like,
Yeah.
each scene is offering you something interesting, funny,
Exactly, yeah.
cool, and engaging. But just the pacing of the scenes really, like, I don't know. I eventually got kind of like just turned off to it.
Yeah, I could see that happening. I was just really into it this time. I don't know why. I was laughing at all the jokes.
Well, no, I mean, it's a funny movie.
Yeah.
I think again, like you mentioned earlier, its animation is really what extends it to being like really funny. Like
Yeah.
there are so many, especially once the dwarves get there, it's just so much fun to watch them just move and do stuff. Almost everything they do is physically funny.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always liked about Disney's animation, like especially their early features. They really have so much character in all of their movement, which is like the animation principle that they've always bragged on
Yeah.
since like day one. And for good reason, evidently.
But it really is sad to me personally how much 3D animation has killed so much of their expressiveness.
Right?
I mean, they pioneered some of the most expressive and engaging 2D animation of all time. And what's crazy too is I've been playing Jack and Daxter. Side tangent here.
Yeah, video
PlayStation
game,
2
baby.
game, and they actually hired some Disney animators from like to work on
That's still so
on that
crazy.
game, and they really wanted to follow like Disney principles of animation and really make their characters expressive, and they're like low polygon, low textures. This is a PS2 game.
In still frame, it looks like garbage, kind of.
But the character movements is so good. There's every single side character, even
It's
like,
crazy,
every
dude.
character is so expressive and unique and exciting to watch on screen.
Right?
Even like Jack and Daxter's movements while you're playing the
It's
game
insane,
are
dude.
just really good. And I'm like, man,
That
why
game's
doesn't
crazy.
modern 3D animation have this expressive of animation?
I was actually thinking about during the whistle while you work sequence. I was like, this kind of reminds me of Encanto, and then I was thinking back on like how the movement is in that movie, and I'm like, this is just so like it's so much blander to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally kind of a true believer on 2D animation. I think it's just 90% of the time better. I think
Yeah.
any movie in 3D animation would probably look better in 2D animation.
Which I mean, it's kind of an unfair comparison. I guess Princess and the Frog would be a better like
Princess and the Frog.
test for that, for my theory that it's kind of gotten blander. But even Princess and the Frog just doesn't have the same like bounce or character to it that this does, which is
Yeah.
a shame, because I like remember how all the dwarves move in this movie.
Yeah.
And that's not something I can say about really any of the characters in Princess and the Frog.
I was about to say there's actually interesting like even thinking there's only a couple movies I can think of 3D animated that I'm like, yeah, that should be 3D animated. Stuff like Into the Spider-Verse and like the Lego movie and stuff like that. Like there are movies that necessitate 3D animation.
Any of the Lord and Miller.
And use it very effectively. But I just think on the whole, 2D animation can be so much more, or at least it's allowed to be so much more expressive and beautiful.
Which is why I'm a big fan of something like Hotel Transylvania or Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Which both of those
like actually
use their expressive 3D animation, and I think those are just fine as 3D animated movies.
Yeah.
But no, you're like the design principles and stuff are at their absolute like roots here, which makes the characters just absolute powerhouses of animation.
They're so funny,
like each one is just so memorable.
Yeah. Which is crazy because one of them is just he sneezes. It's like his whole
one of them's just happy,
right? No, it's crazy. That's something I will never stop praising about Snow White, though.
Yeah, no, I mean,
it's crazy.
I think Snow White deserves like all of the historical recognition and just skill and talent recognition from the animators who worked on it. Again, we were talking about before we recorded this, that one sequence when the dwarves, you know, are back home, like they're walking, they're marching back home.
Dude.
Hi-ho style.
A hi-ho number.
The hi-ho number on their way back home. That took like just that one shot of them all walking past with their shadows on the rocks in the sunset. That took 6 months to animate. People were hand animating all of that, and because each individual dwarf is so expressive, it's so difficult.
It's crazy
to animate that it took them 6 months to animate just that one, probably like a minute long scene.
What's so crazy is this movie's so old that like they started production like so early on. And like a lot of the animation another thing I wanted to praise about the animation and everything is that the rotoscope stuff looks surprisingly good.
Yeah.
And like also doesn't like look stiff or weird like I was worried it might.
Well, often they hide some of the most blatant rotoscoping behind other effects. Like, again, like in the wishing well when she's looking down, that is so clearly rotoscoped, but it's through a water effect.
It looks so good,
and it looks really good. It looks really natural compared to like when it kicks back up to the normal shot. You hardly, like, unless you're looking for it, it doesn't stand out.
I mean, most of the human characters in this, when they move, it's a human reference very, very plainly, but the like actual physical performers for all of the roles are surprisingly good. I was really shocked at like how expressive the evil queen was and like all that. I'm like, man, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's very interesting too, because we talk about like expressiveness of animation, because that's clearly a standout here. But honestly, it's interesting to think about that the least expressive character in the entire thing is Snow White, and she's still pretty expressive, but it's so interesting to me, and I mentioned this while we were watching it, how like barren her face is in design. Like even
very minimal design.
Thinking about like the queen, especially the queen in like witch form, and all of the dwarves, they have very defined lines in their face. They have very defined features on their face.
Right, especially the queen in witch form. She's got like that wart, and they have like to do different coloration on it each time.
But Snow White is practically like this, like her face almost operates as like a blob half the time.
No, she really is just like an anamorphous blob, and then they put the clothes and like makeup and stuff.
And again, I'm assuming that's to make like the rotoscoping process easier. They could just draw the outline of her face and then kind of fill it in.
Just kind of fill it in, which great idea, because she's on screen the most out of anyone.
Yeah, but it makes her a very unique looking character to watch, and really makes her performance like carry the character's expression and everything hard.
Yeah, no, it's very impressive. I'm like still kind of shocked that Snow White works as well as she does, because I kind of like, to my memory watching this when I was younger, I remember her being kind of bland. Like when I was watching it, like I never really was like, oh look, it's Snow White. I was like, oh, it's Snow White. But this time I was like, yeah, she's like, I don't know, kind of killing it. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy here.
so let's move on to a question, since we actually didn't kick off with a question there. We've just been doing organic discussion.
Well, time to chop the flow off.
Yeah, we don't want to
get out of here.
We don't want to be on a flow, but I want to shift from animation talk a little bit to story talk.
Story time.
What do you think of like the use of the dwarves in the story itself?
I don't know, like, how are they really used?
Exactly. Like, what do you
They
think?
really
What do you
don't
think of
serve
the
a
way
purpose.
this like all gels together as a story? I should say.
It's very interesting because I was kind of like this past time watching it, like I was kind of like searching for what the point of Snow White is. Like in the Grimm fairy tale, it's pretty easy to read it as just like, oh, love, is powerful force. Like,
Yeah, but a lot of the stuff that makes the Grimm fairy tales like message pop out is kind of glossed over here.
yeah, exactly. Like it feels like a very different kind of story. It feels more about like, I don't know, kind of motherhood in a way, and also like just general good-naturedness in humanity. Like, I don't know, it's very strange because the romance doesn't feel necessary here at all,
No, it's honestly
which is crazy.
like outside of its like almost MacGuffin status as they need a romance,
Yeah.
so there's going to be a romance for the plot.
But like really the big draw is like
There's nothing.
the dwarves.
Yeah, I was about to say there's nothing romantic based in the storyline. There's nothing even shown besides at the beginning when she's like kind of locked up. There's no real show of loneliness from Snow White while she's with the dwarves.
Exactly, yeah.
She seems pretty, and even she's even pretty happy just in the woods. She's
Right.
Once the animals like surround her, she's like, "Oh, I'm so happy now."
Also, major flex for like 30% of this movie to have like hordes of moving animals during the whole thing, which is insane to think about animating.
There's so many different scenes with so many different moving things in it, and you're like, "Oh my gosh!" Even like, ooh, dude, every time there's water on screen, it looks outstanding, and I don't know how they did that. But again,
Yeah.
the animation,
Yeah. But like the actual dwarves in the story, it's very interesting because like I think a lot of my like personal enjoyment and like any sort of emotional stakes that I get in this movie are like just Snow White like teaching the dwarves manners and whatnot, like just having a good time.
Because
with
most of the story, most of the actual plot of the movie is taking place with her like teaching these dwarves little life lessons
Right.
and being kind of like a parent to them because they're like barely. I don't know how they didn't like all get sick and die and living in their
It's
house.
hilarious. Like the dwarves' house is like bachelor pad HQ. It's so funny.
I love the dwarves in general though. Like they're
Yeah.
such unique characters, and the fact that like they all have this one little trait, but they're all extremely similar outside of that. Mm-hmm. And then like they all like mine for some reason. They even acknowledge that they have no reason to be mining in the
Right.
song because they, like literally they're just taking all of their
just
jewels,
taking the
piling
jewels
them
and
in a
putting them
mine or in a vault, and then they're not even like they take a joke to like show that they leave the key there because they just don't care.
Right.
Like they're not using the jewels for anything. And most other adaptations I've ever seen of Snow White have made like these dwarves, like taking the dwarves in different directions, try to do things with
Like
the
giving them a
dwarves.
vocation or just some kind of like weird goal in life.
A reason why they're mining, if they keep that as part of their character,
Yeah.
like just all of these different things. But in this one, the dwarves just kind of exist.
They're just there.
And
they do what they do.
They do what they do. Snow White comes in, and maybe she teaches Grumpy to not be so misogynistic.
Right. I was going to say he shouldn't be called grumpy. He should be called misogynist. Because that's what
Dude,
he
it's
is.
really funny to me that, like, especially nowadays, there's still, like, a bunch of grumpy merch. I think out of anything Snow White, there's
Yeah.
so much grumpy merch. And I think people have this perception of him being, like, this kind of goofy, grumpy character who's just kind of grumpy about everything.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's specifically just grumpy at everything Snow White related because she's a girl.
It's so
He
funny.
hates women.
It's so funny because like you have to assume that he's like grumpy all the time, but like we don't see him be grumpy until Snow White is on the scene.
Literally any other moment. You watch I was paying attention to him in the mass of the dwarves. Anytime
Yeah.
they're moving as a mass, he just is like, he's just there.
just there,
He
just
seems,
doing
he seems
whatever.
fine.
Seems cool.
Unless Snow White is directly affecting them. Which
He
is
just hates women.
which is hilarious to me that like all of these old guys now are like getting these like grumpy aesthetic shirts that say like, is it Monday yet or something like
so
that.
funny.
And you're like, wow, misogynistic man.
It's so funny. That I really like Grumpy in this movie.
No, he's funny. He's a funny character. I just think I like specifically the way his merchandise is nowadays is so funny to me, given the actual nature of his character.
Yeah, it's interesting, like the legacy of this movie in general, just amongst modern Disney with the whole like I don't know. I thought about it because of the whole like 100th anniversary of the park thing.
Yeah, it's honestly like the least Disney princess feeling of the like official Disney princess properties, because it it wasn't trying to be a Disney princess. And
Yeah,
Snow
there was
White,
no precedent for that yet.
I was about to say, it's Snow White as a princess, and their adaptation of the story is so loosely tied to the fact that she's a princess.
Like, she doesn't even have to be a princess, really, for the story to work.
I was like, yeah, for the story they present, she could have just been anyone.
She could have just been anyone who was beautiful. Yeah, like, her only defining trait is that she's beautiful.
I was about to say, you only get the fact that, like, that's her stepmother, and that she's being forced to be a scullery maid, like, in the opening book stuff.
Exactly, yeah. You read that, and then the story starts. It's crazy.
But you could cut that, and the story would still make sense. You would just think, oh, she's just some scullery maid.
Some scullery maid.
And then they start calling her a princess, and you're like, what? So it's very odd that this was like, and you could say an earnest Cinderella is what kicked off the Disney
it's more
princesses.
Yeah.
But like, it's very interesting that this is like included.
Yeah, no, it's odd that she is a princess at all in my mind every time I read it, which I think that's the way it is in the Grimm fairy tale.
She's a princess in the Grimm. I mean, the Grimm fairy tale has a lot more plot than this.
Right. Yeah.
Again, it has Grimm fairy tales almost always have a very clear thing they're going for.
Yeah.
And this doesn't really have a thing that it feels like it's going for.
Like I said, it really just feels like a movie that's like telling you to be nice to people at the end of the day. That's really what I got from it the most, which is crazy.
And that everyone needs, I don't know, motherly love, I guess.
Right? Yeah, because like half of this movie is literally just like Snow White singing a song, like kicking back with the dwarves, or like teaching them like not to pick their nose or whatever.
Exactly, like it's that kind of thing, and that's about
that's like
it.
the most of the movie.
She's just teaching the animals how to clean the house properly.
Dude, I love the animals. Shout out to the animals. For real.
maybe Rabbi, maybe it's a true misogynistic movie of its time, and it's just trying to be a role model to girls to tell them that all they're good for is cooking and cleaning, and men will be a mess without them.
I was trying to think that. I
think that's an unfair read of the movie, but I think that's funny.
Yeah, because I was like, well, maybe like Snow White will be problematic or whatever, and I was thinking back on it because like most of what she does is just like cook and clean, but like I don't know, it shows a really sweet side of like womanhood back then. Which, I mean, obviously, like, she's a scullery maid before
back
that.
Then, right?
Back in the day.
No, I think it just shows a sweet side of, like, helping people out.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean, she teaches the dwarves to be more tidy, not just cooks and cleans.
I know, exactly. I'm like, it teaches them a valuable lesson. I really think it's quite good, and it has aged surprisingly well.
It is really funny, though, and I don't know if this is entirely true, but it wouldn't surprise me. When I was looking up stuff about this movie, apparently, according to what I found, this was Adolf Hitler's favorite movie.
Crazy.
Which is interesting.
Interesting.
And it's based off of a German fairy tale, to be fair.
That's true. Very true.
Oh.
I don't have a segue from there. My God. Really brought the room down.
Do you just think it's funny. Do you have another question, though?
Another question. Not really, no.
That's it? That's all you have to say about Snow White? No other thoughts?
Well, I'm just trying to think of something that, like...
What about the conclusion of the story?
Oh, yeah. What do you think of the conclusion of the story?
I think the conclusion, I don't know. That's the problem with this movie, is I don't have any problem, like I said, with like the actual idea of the story being as bare bones as it is, because really it is like just a carrying for these fun sequences. It didn't have much of a plot because, I mean, it was one of the first animated movies ever made.
Right.
And, they didn't do that for it. It was much easier to write just individual sequences and give those sequences to teams and have them, you do the sequences, put them all together. There's some kind of narrative formed. So it's not as plot heavy as it could be. And it would have made it be a lot harder in production if it was more plot heavy. And it's fun. Each individual sequence, like I said, brings a lot to offer.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with the fact that like after Snow White eats the apple, that it just kind of resolves.
Right.
But at the same time, Snow White as a story, as a character with these dwarves, it just feels so like misplaced. It feels like, again, that this shouldn't be a Snow White story, like in that sense. It shouldn't. It kind of like, I don't know, I'm kind of just again checked out of the movie by the time we actually like anytime it's actually going for like book plot.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I honestly think that's the thing holding it back from being like a 5 for me. Like if it was just Snow White, like teaching these dwarves like little life lessons and singing songs and stuff, like I think that would be like pretty much a perfect
and I like
movie.
again I love the Queen and I love the idea
Yeah, exactly.
of that
I really like
stuff,
the
but it
Queen.
just doesn't gel. Like there's something about the movie that doesn't fully gel into an actual like.
Well, it has nothing to do with the plot of the dwarves. Like, really, the dwarves are there at like in the final like act of the movie, the little like final sequence, just to like try and rush back and get to Snow White, and then they're too late. They don't.
I was about to say they chase the Queen and kind of indirectly
They don't
lead
even
to her death, very indirectly. I mean, she wouldn't have run up there if they weren't chasing her.
I don't know, man. It's not like they kill her or something. But yeah, no, they are very like separate ideas. Like really, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, this movie feels more like just like a hangout movie with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs than like an actual adaptation of the Grimm fairy tale.
Yeah,
because it feels so tacked on.
I was about to say, which is fine, but at the same time, it does disconnect me from some of the scenes, even though I think each individual scene, even the ones that deal with the story, like I love the Queen scenes.
Love the Queen scenes.
Almost any scene the Queen is in is so much fun. Some of the most fun you have in the movie.
Right.
But like it just doesn't like again it just doesn't
it feels
gel
so
together.
Disconnected.
When the prince comes, you're just like, well, yeah, okay.
All right. But yeah, the actual ending itself is very it's almost bizarre. I don't know. It feels like it was like a deleted scene.
I was going to say, if you didn't know that this was like, if you didn't know Snow White, if Snow White wasn't what it was today, if I had no recollection, because the fairy tale itself was really popular when this movie came out, and then it was made, you know, forever in our public conscious popular by Disney.
Yeah.
But I just I'm trying to picture somebody's reaction to how this movie works.
Yeah.
Who did not know of the fairy tale,
from the context
who did not
of,
know
like,
of
knowing
Snow White,
everything, yeah.
who did not know of any of this, and just watched the movie. I wonder what their thoughts would be.
They'd probably be like, "What the heck, dude? Where'd the Queen go for like half of the movie?" It's very funny. Like, and the prince is only in like 3 scenes.
No, he's in like 2 scenes. He's not even. It's also really funny too, and we were laughing about this at the end of the movie when the prince takes her off to her kingdom.
Dude, she's like riding horseback.
It looks out, and the kingdom is shown to be in the clouds.
It's like this golden.
It could just be framing, but it's this golden, shining city in the clouds. And we're like, well, it's heaven. She died.
I was about to say, I really like the idea that like it was supposed to be like implied that she died, like. And has now gone to heaven with her prince. I think that's really. I think that's a fun idea.
She taught valuable lessons to the dwarves, and now is going off to heaven with her prince.
Which is, I think, actually, if they kept the beginning more vague and then just like had her allude to like wanting a love, and then like that was the ending, I think it would read that way, like that she had died.
It's very. I think it's very interesting that they have like a prayer scene in the movie. Because you know the original fairy tale is very far removed from like Christian prayer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they even have Snow White like praying before she goes to sleep that one time.
Like it's very odd to have that stuff in there and then have this weird framed shot as the kingdom.
That's my headcanon. I'm gonna recut Snow White, cut out like the beginning exposition, and just have like the queen be like, "I'm gonna kill Snow White," and then like the huntsman goes after her and she runs away. And then, like, we never see the prince in the beginning of the movie. I think it would be better.
That would be
my pitch.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
But then I'd be why is he kissing her? Kissing her.
Well, no,
true love's kiss.
Like because he would be a figment of her imagination in that version of the movie, which is why I think it would be better.
Going all Del Toro on.
Exactly.
Pretty much just Pan's Labyrinth.
Exactly. I'm saying Pan's Labyrinth, Snow White. That's the process. That's what it should have been. Man.
What an interesting movie, you know? But man,
It's such a cool movie.
again, I'm trying to think of more to talk about, but honestly, everything my mind comes back to, because I think that's about all you can say about the story. It's a very simple
Weird plot,
story,
fun
weird
movie.
plot. Each individual scene is really fun and brings a lot of really good comedy. There's just so many good like beats and like goofy,
so much
goofy
fun, dude.
bits and
Literally,
songs.
like almost every single like joke in this, like every single facial expression is almost always funny to me.
And this is pre like Broadway musical style Disney musicals, so
Yeah.
like all of the songs are just fun little ditties
Yeah, they're
thrown
very,
in.
very simple, like 2-instrument songs where they're dancing around, the birds are tweeting.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It's a good time.
And
man.
then again, my mind just always comes back to how gorgeous the animation is.
So beautiful, man.
The different reflective elements, the water,
How about the huntsman's knife?
the huntsman's knife, the motion of the characters themselves.
Yeah.
The really cool blend of your more rotoscoped characters like Snow White, and then your like obviously not rotoscoped characters like your dwarves.
You'd think it would look weird together, but like they mesh so well because of the size difference and everything, the way they interact with the environment.
It's so
crazy.
interesting.
Because even the animals are like kind of blobby compared to Snow White.
Yeah, I was about to say, and their beards cover half of like the difficult animation that they would have to be doing.
I was about to say, it was smart thinking. There were a lot of really smart decisions when it came to animating this.
I love how they're often kind of like blobbed together whenever they're moving.
Right? Man, it's just such a joy of a movie. I did have another question though, Mike.
Oh, he's got the questions.
Do you have like a favorite musical sequence in this, or even just a favorite sequence in general?
I think-
if you
I
wanted to
think
pick a non-musical one.
I think my favorite sequence or musical sequence would definitely be, and I mean, this is probably like the most iconic one from the movie, but the one with the dancing and
Yeah,
the little
accordion
organ,
piano
accordion
thing. Yeah.
thingy. It's just fun. It's
So
it's
much
the
fun,
epitome of like, this is the most fun that they're all having together.
They're just
enjoying their time together, and
Exactly.
and so you enjoy your time with them. And there's a bunch of fun little beats and jokes, and I just really, it's a fun song.
It's such a sweet movie. That's really like what Snow White boils down to. Like when I watch it again, like watching it this time, I was like, this is such just like a cozy movie.
Yeah,
to the
it
end.
really
like a very
is.
comforting movie.
One of my favorite scenes or like sequences normally would actually be like for the queen planning for the spell, like the whole spell to when
Yeah.
she's leaving on the boat.
Oh my gosh.
There's
That's-
so much fun stuff in there.
so funny,
and the
dude.
animation flexes with the potion is
Yeah, man.
crazy.
There's
There's
some
this
wild
one
stuff.
shot. She's holding up the goblet of her potion.
Yeah.
There's the reflection of her face in the goblet. The goblet is smoking this really interesting textured looking smoke
Right?
that's filling half the screen. And then the green glow of the potion that's bubbling is filling the other half of the screen while you see her hand
That shot
and
must
the
have taken
reflection of her
forever,
face. And that's like a shot, and it looks beautifully, like beautifully composed. The colors are
it stays on it
gorgeous.
for so long.
Yeah, and like, dude, that's insane. On top of there just being some really funny jokes throughout that sequence.
I really like the
I love when
Raven.
I love when she's walking through the dungeon and the
Yes.
skeleton just about to reach the water.
Yes.
That's so good.
It's a great bit.
like
dude.
that's one of my favorite like scenes from the movie.
Oh yeah. Hard agree.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I was trying to think of like what Queen scene I think I would think of. But yeah, favorite musical sequence. I really like the tidying up the house one.
Oh yeah, that one is really fun.
Actually, over that one, I think I would actually choose like the hand washing one. That one's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, that's fun.
But I think the dance, like with the organ and everything, is obviously the best one.
Very iconic
Yeah.
for Disney. What are you gonna do?
I hate to pick it, but it is probably the better one in the movie. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun.
I was about to say-
I might actually go with the same pick for favorite.
I was about to
scene.
say
That one's a lot of fun.
any given scene in this movie though is genuinely really fun. Like I wouldn't complain about watching pretty much any scene from this movie, and it's brief enough that there's not a whole lot of room for like a lot of annoying scenes that dragged on too long.
Yeah, you mentioned like it being like, or I've mentioned too, it being kind of plotless for a lot of the movie. But like honestly, I wouldn't want a lot of plot beats for something like this.
You'd have to completely change what the movie was going for.
Yeah.
And I think it fits, like, again, I think it's pretty beautiful as a project on its own. I just don't think it's that good of like a movie.
As an adaptation of the Grimm's fairy tale, it kind of fundamentally fails. And I think, I don't know, I think as like a hangout kind of movie, I think it works. Call me crazy.
But it's just fun and it's cool. And
it's a cool movie, dude.
What can you do? It's Snow White.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It's history, you know?
Man.
And I think watching it and appreciating that and appreciating all the hard work that went into it, give it plenty of like value and entertainment factor outside of the actual like kind of sloppy, slightly unengaging story.
I don't know, man. I don't find the story that unengaging.
I don't know. Like midway towards the end, I was just clocking out at the movie. I was like, oh.
I mean, I can't really like argue for, like, I can't be like, oh, Snow White's got the perfect screenplay. How can you be unengaged? There's an obvious payoff here in this scene. But like, I don't know.
But there's not.
The vibes are enough to hold me over until we get to like more Queen stuff.
A man cannot live on vibes alone.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very neat movie that I think especially, again, people get a very interesting picture of it in this, like in
my mental image was a lot different than what I
think
like,
this is a movie that warrants a rewatch if you haven't seen it in a while, because it's very interesting and it's very cool to watch with the knowledge of its historic significance. Because like again, the last time I watched this, I probably was told by my parents that it was like, oh, this is the first animated movie, but I was like, wow, that's amazing. Good for it.
I was like, baby brain movie time. Oh, look, it's music.
I remember the first time I watched this too. I could picture it in my mind, and I think it's the only time I had actually watched it. We were in
That's crazy.
We were in our parents' bedroom, and we projected it onto the wall.
Oh,
and I ate peanut butter, cheese, and crackers.
I feel like I remember that. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I specifically remember that. I don't know how. That was so long ago.
The dish of choice with this movie: cheese and crackers, a little bit of peanut butter.
A little bit of I mean, what can go wrong? But no, it's a very interesting movie to come back to, and I think it brings a lot of interesting thoughts for how Disney progressed, what this movie has been used for culturally from Disney, which are, I don't know, every Disney thing I've seen that relates to this movie does not capture the vibe of the movie at all.
It's very strange.
I mean, we were just at Disney and they have like the mine train and everything, and like there's just a lot of different things that just don't feel very Snow White-y.
No, it's the use of its legacy by Disney, and just its legacy in general is kind of an interesting like thing to study with how the movie actually is. Like, it's just a very like chill like music movie with some funny guys.
It's like, wow, isn't this so sweet?
Yeah.
It's like, again, I thought it was really funny. I was like, it's just like the Minions.
Oh no, Minions, but epic,
it is Despicable Me for real.
Dude, imagine if the Minions movie was like them, like having actual interesting, like funny antics instead of whatever the plot was supposed to be for Minions.
Honestly, that's the okay. Hate the Minions if you will. They can be used to some fun effect. Hence, the original Despicable Me.
The
Minions
funny,
are pretty funny.
They're pretty funny.
And you know why? Because they have nothing. They're just there as funny little things.
They're just vibing, dude.
And that's great.
They're doing like Gilbert bits in the first one, which I'm a big fan of.
So, like, why is the Minions movie this weird plot-heavy thing? Why not just make it some goofy little... just bit movie?
It's so funny to me that the Despicable Me franchise has become like an espionage franchise.
I think Despicable Me movie. I think the Minions movies have like more plot focus than any of the Despicable Me movies, which is hilarious because the
should
plot
be the exact
in
opposite,
both of the Minions movies is depressingly awful.
Dude, Rise of Gru makes a little more sense, but like honestly, the Minions movie, like I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you, dude. Something about like a wolf or in a dress.
No, the queen, Ravi. They're trying to become the queen of England.
They succeed, and then like the villain.
Lady, they don't succeed. Like she hires them to steal the crown, and they steal the crown. But then Bob takes the crown, and then he becomes the king of England. And she's like, "That's not what's supposed to happen. I was supposed to become the queen of England." So then she immediately takes them out because they're little pills,
weird.
and then then somehow there's more plot after
I
that.
don't remember what happens in that movie, dude.
Yeah, Minions.
Snow White.
Snow White, though.
Good movie.
Animation history, baby.
Look how far we've come. Now we can watch Minions.
The Rise of Gru.
The Rise of Gru. Featuring a song by Wise Blood and Micah.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good song, actually.
But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Snow White.
Yeah, not too much.
I gave it a 3 out of 5. I think that's a pretty fair. I think that's a fair rating. It's a good movie, but I don't think it's like a great movie.
I wouldn't be as sad if you gave it a 3.5. But
I just didn't feel like it met the 3.5 qualifications for me.
Yeah.
It just didn't. It didn't feel the 3.
More power to you.
It's not something I would go out of my way to turn on.
Yeah, it's not like a. I think it is a technical masterpiece, but I could very easily see it like become unengaging for someone.
Yeah, it's far more interesting to me on a cultural and like artistic level than it is on an actual movie level.
That's fair. Again, I give it a 4 out of 5. I think it's a extremely solid movie. I would watch it over like Sleeping Beauty any day. Any of the like really early Disney entries. I think it's one of the more fun ones.
Yeah, it's very interesting thinking because like Cinderella, I think is one of the more bland ones in my opinion.
There's
Sleeping
a lot of
Beauty
like dumb plot stuff.
I was about to say they get a lot more like after this they get a lot more plot focused and that's not always a good thing.
Yeah. Oh man, what was going on in Black Cauldron, dude?
Black Cauldron. I mean, that was a lot later, though. I know. It's already up in like the 70s almost.
Still, I don't know. Disney has a weird history.
Or actually, that's later than the 70s, I think. Isn't it like a 90s movie?
Yeah, it's like an 80s or 90s movie.
The Black Cauldron is so recent.
I know, but it's got the similar vibe where it's like a bunch of weird plot stuff, like dragging the whole vibe of the movie down. Because the vibes in Black Cauldron, immaculate. The plot... not so much.
Well, to be fair, the plot of the Black Cauldron was absolutely skewered, destroyed, burned, torched, and melted by Mr. Katzenberg.
Yeah,
literally, dude. Literally, they had the movie, and it was already cut down a ton, and then he was like, "You have to cut 20 minutes off your movie,"
which is insane.
Which
it's almost unintelligible now.
Yeah, like literally, it is a terrible movie, honestly.
I think it's bad.
And I think
I know it has its problems.
I'm sure it was a fine movie, honestly, before they made them cut that much. You just can't do that to a movie that had already been cut down that much.
It's crazy, dude.
Ugh.
Disney.
Shout out to Katzenberg.
Oh gosh, dude. But yeah, that's Snow White. Thank you for listening to our discussion of Snow White.
Now we're gonna go on to the What We Watched segment.
Let's do it.
Alright, so for those of you who do not know, the What We Watched segment is a short little segment we do in the end where we talk about all the other movies we've watched since our last episode. We give some brief thoughts, a rating, and we talk about them.
Yeah. Indeed we do.
We're going from, I think, the 15th this week.
March 15th, baby.
Did not watch very much.
No.
Yet again, we've been very busy. Not a whole lot of time to watch movies.
Yeah.
But what do we start with, Remy?
On the 15th, we sat down and popped in the Blu-ray for Green Room, a little 2015 thriller slasher thingy. I don't know. I guess it's not really a slasher.
Not really a slasher.
But it is a thriller.
It is a thriller. Which, this was an interesting one.
Yeah, I'd been looking forward to it for a long, long time.
It has really, really great energy. I love the cast. Patrick Stewart is a very odd inclusion.
He's such a good cast for this, man. I don't know who the casting director was, but they were doing their job well.
Neo-Nazi Patrick Stewart.
Neo-Nazi Patrick Stewart. Everything that I didn't even know I needed from a movie.
Anton Yelchin, I think is how you say his name. Very cool. Yeah. I've liked him in like everything I've seen him in, but also very depressing because I found out that he like died after watching this.
Yeah.
Which I was like, dang, what the heck?
Which is a shame. Yeah, I was about to say he's killing it here. He's been great in everything I've seen him in, though.
No, that's what I said. Like I've loved him in everything I've seen him in, and yeah. But what did you think of the movie? Yeah, really said.
Yeah, I was about to say the film itself, I think, is like a really fun kind of I don't know, like contained thriller, which I'm a big fan of. I really liked the cinematography. A lot of the story framing is really cool. I liked a lot of the like punk rock aesthetics. I think it worked really well for like the tone of the movie and making the setting a bit more interesting than just like a regular, like, I don't know, hostage situation. And a lot of the like Nazi stuff is handled pretty well. I had a great time with it. I think Green Room, a pretty darn good movie if you ask me. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5. So
which is crazy because it's not a 5 out of 5 movie. I really enjoyed it, but I definitely think the screenplay has a lot of major problems. I think it definitely ends on a little bit of a lesser note than I wish it did.
Yeah,
it's
the ending is a little strange.
It's paced a little poorly. It doesn't fully like seem like it should all work together, and I don't think it does. But when it's doing really fun stuff, it's really, really fun.
Yeah, the standout stuff I think is really the action and the cast.
I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah. Pretty solid.
Then on the 15th, I also watched Wong Kar-wai's Fallen Angels.
Who'd have thunk it?
Which is my second Wong Kar-wai film. I have the big box set, The World of Wong Kar-wai.
Wow.
So I was excited to like start getting through it. This was the one I was actually most excited about. And lo and behold, it was really, really, really great. I liked it even more than In the Mood for Love. It's so cool. It's shot so well. Like, this thing is insane. I've never seen another movie that looks quite like this. The cast is really great, and although it's a little bit of an odd story to watch unfold, like especially the way it goes about telling it, it's kind of hard to track what's happening a lot of the times. Mm-hmm. I think the way it ends and a lot of the different emotion behind it is really, really strong, and I think on a rewatch especially, it would be very like, it would be insane. It's such a good movie, and it's not too long, so it's not like overstaying its welcome or anything with its a little bit more confusing like presentation.
Well, I mean, it's in the top like what 250 of Letterboxd.
Yeah, I don't know. It's got like a 4.2 average. I don't know anybody who's seen Fallen Angels who doesn't like Fallen Angels.
Like, it's a pretty great movie if you ask me. And then,
but it's just really fantastic.
No kidding, man.
I give it a 5 out of 5 if you can imagine.
Can't wait to see it.
No, it's great.
Pretty cool. And then the next day, I figured we'd give this a shout out, even though it's not like a movie, quote unquote.
It's feature length.
It's
a movie.
It's a feature length.
The Halloween
thing.
special is a movie.
Yeah. So we watched the MTV Scream like television series Halloween special, which is interesting.
I had not watched the rest of the show.
I had just binged the show did not look very good.
Yeah. But I wanted to catch this because it was a loggable movie, and
it's a Scream movie, Mike.
A quote unquote massive giant quotes Scream movie.
Wow!
Because there is not a single thing in this movie that actually has to do with Ghostface plot wise. Not even like their show Ghostface or anything. Like, they reference it, but the actual killer in this is some lame like weird island thing. It has literally it's just a completely different tiny contained story and mystery within this.
Yeah, it functions more as a Scooby-Doo thing than a Scream thing.
Right? And like, you know, it's fine. It's not the worst thing in the world. The cast is fine.
Yeah, I think it really just suffers from like a bad mystery, and the killer reveal is like terrible.
It's awful. And like, why can't it be Ghostface? Why do we have to have this weird burlap sack mask shear killer?
Well, I mean, like,
with a lame plot.
I don't think they could use like the Ghostface like mask or anything in the show until the third season.
I'm saying their Ghostface mask.
You're saying Brandon James, yeah.
It's expressly Ghostface in the show, is it not?
No, it's Brandon James.
But do they not call him Ghostface at any point?
His name is Brandon James,
and he had multiple killers. Robbie. It's not just one guy.
No, he had there was this guy called Brandon James who was alive before any of the cast members. And then, like, he had a surgical mask that he had to wear, and people are putting on like that mask and killing.
That doesn't make any sense as a surgical mask. Why does it look like that?
He was born like hideously deformed in the show.
Wow.
And then they kept trying to fix his face with like surgery, so they would custom build him face masks each time they performed surgery on him.
Wow, they're doing a real bad job at the surgery then.
There was like 6 masks, and like in the first season, like people keep like recreating it and putting it on. It's not a ghost face.
It's a ghost face mask. At any rate, it could have been, and I will call him Ghostface because he has a ghost face looking mask, wears a ghost face looking garb, and kills people like Ghostface.
I see.
In a Scream television show.
Yeah.
He is Ghostface. But yeah, very boring. Would never think about it again. The actual movie.
I don't know. I think the cast is a lot more like charming and has a lot more chemistry in the special than they do in a lot of the show. But maybe that's more of a like criticism of the show than a praise for this. I don't know. I still had fun with it. It's not very like great or good. But I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5. I thought it was all right.
I give it a 2.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Then on the 19th, I watched The Ritual.
The Ritual.
Netflix original horror movie.
Netflix original. Yikes.
Produced, executive producer by Andy Serkis.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. I never quite know what to think of that
right.
credit.
could mean anything.
Right.
Very odd movie. It's a shame that it's not better. I know a lot of people know about this movie because of its creature design, which is very, very sick.
I need to watch it.
And there's a lot of, like, in the latter half, there's a lot of really fun stuff. Because in the latter half, it becomes, like, Resident Evil 4 via, like, weird Norse mythology.
Yeah.
And it's really, really cool. In the first half, it's, like, a bunch of British guys being like, oi, bruv, in the woods, isn't it? And
the woods.
And then somebody twists their ankle. Like, it's that for, like, for probably like 40 minutes of this 90-minute horror movie.
That's hilarious.
But once it actually gets going, I genuinely think it's pretty fun. I actually liked the lighting in the woods stuff, like at night.
That's hard to do.
I liked how everything looked in the woods. I thought when it was dark, it was good to be dark, and when they used flashlights and stuff, they lit things well.
Good. That's a tough task, man.
And I mean, the creature design is just cool, and like it surprisingly looks really good. I don't know what budget this thing had, but also there are a lot of other effects too when they get into like the creepy resident village stuff. Like,
nice.
You know, there's a lot of just fun effects, little details. It's not like the craziest story in the world, and I don't like the way it ends, but you know, whatever. I give it a 3 out of 5.
Cool movie regardless. Nice. I guess after that, we watched a little film called Lady Vengeance.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
My second Park Chan-wook film.
My third, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, Lady Vengeance, or Sympathy for Lady Vengeance.
Which should be its
if you want the
title.
correct title.
Literally, we've been talking about this since Robbie watched Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance.
Yes.
And we were talking about all these movies, and we were going through them all, and we were like, man, why is this one called Lady Vengeance? We just kept commenting, we were like, why isn't it called Sympathy for Lady Vengeance? That seems so silly. And we start the movie, and then instantly the title card's like Sympathy for Lady Vengeance. I'm like, what the heck?
So dumb.
What is up? And you go to like IMDb and look at alternate titles. The Asian English title is Sympathy for Lady Vengeance. So that's clearly the original title. I don't know what's up in America.
But yeah, Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, I think a masterpiece. Perhaps.
I think pretty darn sick.
Right.
I didn't love it quite as much as you did, clearly.
I love it,
but I really love what it's trying to do. Its filmmaking is literally impeccable. Gasp from a Park Chan-wook film. Who would have thought?
Right. I was about to say, I think Park Chan-wook is probably one of like the best directors out there.
Its use of color, blocking, editing, cinematography, character work, pacing.
It's always so good.
The script itself is really impressive.
Right.
I think honestly the only problem I have with the entire film is its pacing. It's not quite.
Yeah, it feels a little long.
Yeah, it feels a little too long in some parts, which is a shame. Yeah. Outside of that, like it's just so good.
Right.
And it does a really like I don't know what to expect. This is the first of any of his vengeance movies that I've seen.
Yeah.
And I did not know what to expect, but it offers a surprisingly nuanced look at vengeance. And like I don't know, for some reason I expected these to be like, yeah, vengeance.
You expected more like exploitation movies
like,
kind of
like,
thing?
Kind of like Kill Bill, you know? I was expecting Kill Bill.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, Mr. Vengeance is a very nuanced movie, and this one is too, I would argue. So
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I love the note it ends on. I love the cast. I love the gun prop is like the sickest thing in the world.
yeah, shout out to the gun in this movie. It looks awesome. It's crazy.
But I do want to restate this for my podcast audience. I don't know what it is, and I think it's gotta be like unless I'm going crazy, being that I haven't watched very many Korean films.
Okay.
But maybe I'm just going crazy. But is there like something different culturally? Audience, answer this. In Korea towards dogs, because like the two Korean filmmakers that I've watched some of their films from, Bong Joon-ho and Park Chan-wook, both of them have like very negative stuff towards dogs. And I don't know where that comes from.
I think it's just a cultural thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't remember,
Is that like
I
a
don't
cultural...
know what it stems from, though.
Like, do people just not like dogs that much in Korea? Is that a thing? Like, are dogs
I think it's like
more negatively?
I think there's a lot of like religious traditions around dogs.
I was about to say dogs are like American sweethearts.
Right.
I was about to say, like, I know a lot of Asian countries don't like dogs that much. People in, like, a lot of people in India don't like dogs that much because there are so many, like, wild, mean dogs in India.
Like, all the dogs in America are, like, domesticated and just kind of dumb.
Goofy little guys.
Yeah, they're just goofy little guys.
So, I don't know. I just thought that was something of note. Don't this movie would in fact make it on Does the Dog Die?
Does the dog die? Oh, gosh. That scene, I was like, oh, no. But yeah, lots of just an insanely cool movie that works really well stylistically.
Yeah, very, very cool stylistically. Love the gun prop. The gun is like the coolest thing happening in the movie. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 5 out of 5, man. It's
I was
great.
just throwing out 5 stars. You get a 5-star.
Green
you
Room,
get a 5-star.
Green Room, and Lady
I don't think
Vengeance.
either
I
of
think
those
are
are
both
5-star
really great
movies.
movies.
I think
dude.
Green Room is not any Ravi. Listen, I don't think Green Room is anywhere near on the same tier as Lady Vengeance.
Well, they're different kinds of movies.
But Ravi, Lady Vengeance is much better.
I mean, yeah, Lady Vengeance is better, but
then on the 20th we watched Snow White, which we just talked about.
We just talked about it.
Crazy.
Who would have thought it?
And then also on the 20th, later that day.
After
Actually, surprisingly enough, after we recorded the last segment you heard, but before we recorded this segment,
What on earth?
We sat down and we watched Dario Argento's Inferno.
Yes.
Sequel to Suspiria.
I guess not like, I mean, it is kind of a direct sequel. I was going to say more like spiritual successor to Suspiria.
It's like loose sequel.
Yeah,
but
it's like
it
a
is
loose
technically
sequel.
like, I mean, you could watch them out of order, but it is a sequel to Suspiria.
Yeah, weird movie. For multiple reasons other than just its relation to Suspiria.
Yeah, I think the weirdest thing about this is that, like, it's very, very similar to Suspiria, as you would imagine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, its writing is so drastically different from Suspiria, because Suspiria is this very simple, like, narrative.
Yeah.
You
Girl
follow
goes to a
Susie.
school.
She's like, oh, this school's so weird.
And then, like, she gets poisoned. She wants to figure out why.
Blah, blah, blah. This one is, like, literally switching main characters every, like, 20 minutes.
Did you read my review?
They like never interact.
It's like 3 different protagonists and they share like 2 scenes.
The plot, there's not much plot.
Not much plot.
There's not much even investigating of like, because like the whole thing, it like presents the fact that like each of these 3 witches, which, you know, the 3 mothers are introduced.
Yeah, the witch mothers.
There's the one from Suspiria, which we've seen.
Yes.
And her little thing in Germany. And now we have the one in New York.
Yes.
And we're at her little thing.
Yeah.
But there's not much exploration of her home.
I like that it's just like an apartment building.
You're right. She just has an apartment complex. And like she's not actually in the film for too much, which to be fair, neither is the witch from Suspiria, but it's just different vibe in this movie when she's not like some old thing trying to recover from like being super old.
Yeah.
It's just kind of weird, and there's a lot of scenes that literally just never go explained.
It's a crazy movie, dude.
Like they find this one thing in the floorboards, and then like it's like this thing that had been introduced earlier about like part of the lore around the witches, and he finds this note and it's just in Latin, and they read the Latin and then never tell you what it means.
It's quite good. I don't know. There's a bunch of like plot points and beats that are just so strange that don't really make much sense.
Like the woman in the music hall, who I thought for sure would be the mother,
right?
But then she's just not.
It's so funny, dude. I swear. But as like weird and like nonsensical as a lot of it is, it looks phenomenal at the very least.
Well, it's like nonsensical, but at the same time, it feels extremely planned. Like everything feels very deliberate. And I think the atmosphere that it curates is something extremely interesting to watch.
Yeah.
I love like the world of these movies, like this and Suspiria. I just want to spend more time in the universe,
Right.
finding out more about these witches. It's finding out more about this architecture, man.
Right.
Dude, whoever like IRL designed these things, insane. I don't know any buildings in New York that look like that. That's all I'm saying. Like, dude, the architecture in these movies, Suspiria and Inferno, is just beautiful.
Yeah, the way they utilize space in this, like, there's so many good, like, and memorable set pieces, kind of like Suspiria. A lot of the kills are like very location based.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job of tying that in.
I was about to say, it's not as scary as Suspiria by any means.
No, not really, yeah.
But it is very fun.
It's a blast, dude. Some of the kills in Inferno are so cool.
At one point, there's this guy, and he's getting eaten alive by rats, and he says, "Help, I'm getting eaten alive by rats."
He just calls out, "Help, I'm getting eaten by rats."
Which is very funny.
And then, like, this New York butcher just comes up.
He's like, "I'm the butcher," and then he just stabs him.
He just kills him. And for no reason.
Okay, well, I read that. I saw people being like, he just kills him for no reason. This random kid. I read that as, because in Suspiria, very often, like, there's a lot of kills done by other people who are just bewitched.
I know.
And I would assume
like,
that
that's
he's
what
bewitched.
it is, but they don't set it up at all.
Well, yes, they do, because he goes and he complains to the witches. He complains to them about their cats.
I mean...
And then he's trying to kill their cats, and then...
Well, no, I'm saying the butcher guy isn't, like, set up at all.
Oh, well, he doesn't need to be set up.
No, I just think it's funny. I was like, oh no, he's getting eaten by rats. And then someone comes over and kills him anyway.
Right? Like, I feel like that's almost like a mercy kill.
Right? It's funny.
Instead of getting slowly eaten alive by rats.
But yeah, I ended up rating Inferno 4 out of 5. I might bump it up to a 5, honestly.
I give it a 4.5 out of 5. One of the few times, that of late anyway, that I've given a rating higher than Robbie.
Yeah, man, Inferno's a blast. I love the ending of it.
But again, there's just something, I can't even explain it properly. I put in my review that I just have no idea how to explain it, but I just really love these movies.
Right? There's something so, like, kind of cheap and weirdly niche about them.
Even more so than, like, Phenomena, which has a very similar vibe.
Yeah.
But, like, it's just not, like Suspiria and Inferno, I'm like, yeah. This is it. This is what we need.
But then they look phenomenal. I don't know. It's so crazy, like, where the, like, craft of the movie, like, sticks out, because it's very unconventional by, like, my American movie standards.
Right, by American movie standards, people would probably say this looks cheap and bad, but at the same time, the lighting is, like, outstanding.
But
the
it, like,
set design
works.
is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The cinematography is great.
Crazy, dude.
Dude, the death costume burning in the Inferno.
Yes. One of the craziest shots ever, I think.
That was so cool.
It's such a good shot.
Dario Argento's an odd filmmaker, and you could feel so much of his stylistic influence in, like, everything he does. Right. There were a lot of, like, bugs in this one, and I just kept thinking of Phenomena.
Like, they had the little lizard, they got the bugs.
Dude, think about the water. Anyway, I could do a whole episode on, like, Inferno. There's so much to talk about in Inferno. Some like insane sequences, a very unconventional movie with a very unconventional ending, especially compared to Suspiria.
It's so the ending is so funny, I think.
But yeah, loved it.
No, it's such a good time.
4.5. That's the last thing we watched.
Yeah, that's what we watched over the past week.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.
Some pretty cool movies.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Hope you guys enjoyed.
It was a lot of fun.
Go check out Fallen Angels if you're old enough and want to watch it.
I was about to say, same goes for Sympathy for Lady Vengeance.
Or Inferno.
Yeah. But yeah, go watch a good movie.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you guys next week.
Bye. Thank you.